Hey, what is good with y'all? It's your boy KAG, and today we're going to be talking about the Nintendo NX and the possibility of it not being a console. Now, I know a lot of people are actually thinking that the Nintendo NX is going to come out and it's going to be revealed and it's going to be a console, but I don't necessarily think that's actually the case. So, as we all know, Nintendo is trying to do something new with their actual hardware. So for them to do a traditional console, that wouldn't technically be anything new. Now, on the other side of things, if they were to go ahead and they were actually to create a handheld, well, you know what, that technically wouldn't be anything new either. However, we have this issue right now with Nintendo where they're kind of in a rough spot. So everybody is wanting a great console from Nintendo. But, you know, if the console fails, then people will say, well, Nintendo, you need to get out of the hardware, y'all need to stop making consoles or whatever, what have you. But, you know what, like the DS, you know, I think they're gonna go a different route with this. So if we all remember back in the day when the DS was first announced, and you know, it wasn't supposed to be, you know, a replacement for the Game Boy, but we all see how that turned out. But I think they're technically doing the same thing here, because right now with the NX being, you know, the new kid on the block and the Wii U being a big failure really, it looks like they would actually try to do something different. That way they have a backup plan. So for the NX, what I believe they're actually doing here is they're actually doing a handheld device that just technically streams to your television. Now, why do I say this? And I know a lot of y'all are gonna say, no, I completely disagree with this actual statement. But the reason why I believe they are doing this is, number one, the 3DS is on its last leg right now, and technically it's supposed to be replaced in March of 2017, which would make it 6 years old. And let's say if Nintendo was to actually come out with a console in March, then that would mean that the 3DS will be on the market without any games for at least a year, maybe even 2 years before, you know, we actually see a successor to the 3DS. Now, with that being said, Nintendo wouldn't leave the 3DS dormant for a long time because technically that's what makes them a lot of money. But if you actually look at how things are going right now, you will see that the mobile market for Nintendo is becoming a big deal. So, because the mobile market is becoming a big deal, they would try to get those people over to Nintendo devices, right? Well, you wouldn't technically take a person that is on mobile and bring them over to a console, because it just doesn't transition that way. So instead of actually taking those people from mobile and bringing them over to a console, a traditional console, what they would do is they would actually bring them over by way of handheld, because handheld is something that they're actually familiar with. They're used to using a touchscreen device, you know, that can put in their pocket and they can take on the go with them and they can bring it back and go different places with it. Whereas, you know, they really don't really play like your traditional console games. Granted, yes, some do own PlayStation 4s and things like that, but for you to tackle that actual mobile market, you actually need to come in with more of a handheld type device. Now, does that mean that it's going to be a completely, you know, handheld? No, it doesn't mean it's going to be a complete handheld because, like I said, Nintendo is trying to do something different. Now, with that being said, what I believe it does is it's a handheld, but it can actually, you know, stream or connect to your TV some type of way, whether it's a dongle or something like that. That way, you're able to get a console experience for those people that want console experiences, and then you're able to get a handheld experience for those people that want handheld experiences. Now, if you actually take a look at Japan right now, Japan is kind of in an odd spot because, you know what, majority of their people buy handhelds, and not that many people buy consoles. But if you look at what Nintendo has done, they've actually combined their handheld and their console market together. Therefore, you know, those people are actually creating games for one platform. which would be the NX. That way it has a lot more games. So what does that mean? Well, that means that the NX would have a combination of handheld games and console games. And what do we have as evidence of that? Well, if you actually take a look at what's currently going on, we have The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild that is coming out, and that is clearly a console game. And you know the reason why it's a console game and why it's a main focus for the NX? Well, they want to let y'all know that this handheld device is capable of a lot. It's not just a regular handheld device. That's the reason why there's such a big focus on the actual Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, because they want people to see that, hey, don't just mark this off as a little handheld that connects to your TV. This is actually a beast on the inside. So, you know, especially with how vast the world is and how large it is and everything, you know, that actually kind of proves their point. But on a side note, they actually have, you know, Animal Crossing that is supposed to be coming out at launch with the Nintendo NX. Now, what is that? Well, that's more of a mobile game. That's a game people play on the go and invest a lot of hours in. But if you actually look at it, they're actually targeting two completely demographics, because you have a console demographic, which would be your Legend of Zelda. You have a handheld demographic, which would be Animal Crossing. They both are going in completely different directions and targeting different audiences. And granted, yes, there are some that meet in the middle, but they are technically, you know, targeting two completely different demographics. And how do we know that Animal Crossing is coming? Well, we know that Nintendo announced that they are making a Animal Crossing mobile game, right? And so this Animal Crossing mobile game is supposed to sync up with the Nintendo NX version of Animal Crossing. And that was actually a proven point. So we know Animal Crossing isn't coming to Wii U, or they would have announced it. So because we know it's not coming to Wii U, we know it's coming to the NX. And so with that being said, now you have two completely different types of games. You have a console game and you have a handheld game. But would we stop there? No, we wouldn't really stop there. You know why? Because we need to even bring in a more way to bring in that mobile market, which is why we go ahead and we put mobile games on this device as well. So now you have three tiers of games. You have what would be your mobile type games, you would have your console type games, and you would have your handheld type games. Now, granted, yes, majority of the handheld games, or a lot of the handheld games, could potentially be like console games. But, you know, because, you know, technically it can do what a console can do graphically. So, it is technically possible that we have a little bit of everything there for everybody to play, a little bit of something different for everyone, you know. And on top of that, they're going to be able to release a lot more games for this one particular device. Now, we all know that Nintendo wouldn't technically stick with one particular device. Why? Well, we know Mr. Iwata said that he wanted to create a platform that will allow them to expand, you know, into different types of platforms and have different types of devices. Well, that's still technically possible. You just give them it in different sizes and different types. Example, take a look at the 2DS and then take a look at the 3DS and then take a look at the 3DS XL. They all are completely different, but they're all the same. They can all play the same games. Some are made for kids, like the 2DS, where it's just a hard chunk piece of plastic. Then you have the 3DS, which is for a person that wants to step up over the 2DS. And then you have a device like the 3DS XL, which is for somebody who wants more of a larger screen. But if you actually go ahead and you do that, now you have a device where you could technically have a actual 2DS version of the NX, a 3DS version of the NX, a 3DS XL version of the NX, as well as they all are able to actually connect and play on your TV as console experiences. Now, if we take a look at Japan right now, Japan doesn't have a lot of space there. So this is a very important note for Nintendo. Granted, it may not mean as much to other people with their big, large consoles. this actually is important for Nintendo because Nintendo's core audience is over there in Japan, and yes, granted, there is a large amount of people here in the US, but they have a lot of people in Japan, and those people do not have the space for a traditional console. So how do you actually combat this? Well, you go ahead and you build a device that actually just streams to your TV rather than having a actual console box that sits under your TV. And if you actually take a look at the information that's been going on with Nintendo, we know that in the past, previously, the 3DS was supposed to have an NVIDIA Tegra chip inside of it. However, NVIDIA wasn't able to come up with the chips in time for the 3DS release, so they actually went ahead and went with another chip for the 3DS instead. So, does that mean that Nintendo would completely boycott NVIDIA? No, not really. That means that actually goes ahead and gives you some evidence that, you know what, they could technically be working with NVIDIA. And then we also have the report by semiaccurate.com where they are stating that the Tegra is supposed to be for a mobile device, right? Well, has anybody else heard of any type of mobile device that Nintendo's working on? No, because nobody technically knows what the NX is. We don't know if it's a console, we don't know if it's a handheld. It could be anything, really. So, with that being said, if you actually look at what everybody's been saying, you have everybody pretty much calling it either a machine or a device, but nobody has technically given it, you know, the name of a console. And yes, technically it would be a console, but it would also be a handheld as well, because a console is nothing but a handheld device that is put inside of a box that sits under your TV that you're able to play your games on your television. That's all it is. And so to actually go ahead and you break that barrier and break that routine or that theory of you having to have a box sit under your TV in order to play games, you know, Nintendo could be trying to erase that. Now, if we actually take a look at the chips NVIDIA's been working on, they have the X1 chip, which is technically around the power of a PlayStation 3 or Xbox One, but we also know that on August 22nd, they're supposed to be revealing a new chip, a new version of the Tegra. So with that being said, you know what? That could actually be the actual chip that is going to be in the NX, which could typically possibly be 2 terabytes, or should I say 2 teraflops, excuse me. Because if you look at the current X1, it is actually around a teraflop right now. So that would actually be a big boost up for the Tegra. And on top of that, that would actually be a good deal for Nintendo, because that would mean that they would have a handheld type device that was actually extremely powerful and able to play quality games or games that are on the level of PlayStation 4, because the PlayStation 4 is only at 1.85 teraflops. So, you know, we could be looking at NVIDIA Tegra inside of there. Even though a lot of people are saying that it's going to be a Polaris chip and all of this nonsense, but when you actually take a look at the facts, no one has said that, you know, they're going with a Polaris chip inside of their console. There's no evidence of it. The only evidence we have really is the fact that it's going to be going more with a Tegra. We have an article on it, but do we have any articles on them going with a Polaris? No, there's no articles about them going with Polaris. If you actually take a look at the rumors and everything, granted, yes, you know, we have 2 different sides here. Some people are saying that it's not going to be as strong. Some people are going to say it's going to be super strong. But we have 2 completely different sides. We have, you know, people like Emily Rogers saying that they're going with a Tegra chip. And this was just moments before the actual report came out about, you know, an NVIDIA Tegra chip coming out. And then, if we look at the Polaris side, yes, I know everybody wants Polaris. It's nice, it's strong. It would actually be way in their benefit to have a Polaris chip. But would Nintendo technically go with it? Probably not. You know why? Because it's something that you want, and Nintendo thinks outside of the box, and they usually do something on their own accord and do stuff differently. So I don't technically believe they would be going with a Polaris chip. Now, when you have a conversation with the other developers that are out there, such as like Take-Two and everyone else that are out there, EA, Ubisoft, all of them. Well, if you take a look at what Ubisoft has been saying, that they think that it's going to bring in more casuals, right? And in order to bring in more casuals, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a Wii or a Wii U or a console per se, because technically handhelds can bring in more casuals than actual consoles because people play them more. Let's be real. But when you actually add all of this up, it looks more like the side that Nintendo is actually going to go with a handheld type device rather than a console type device. And I do strongly believe that they're going with an NVIDIA Tegra rather than a Polaris. And I mean, just even look at when the actual NVIDIA Tegra is supposed to be revealed. It's revealed on August 22nd. So let's see, if Nintendo NX was revealed at Gamescom, then that would mean that it would actually have been revealed and then the chip would be shown off. Or the other way around, the chip would have been shown off in August 22nd and then, the NX would be revealed in September. So it kind of lines up with the actual thinking of, them being, hand in hand. But anyways, let me know what y'all think about all this down in the comment section. Do you think Nintendo is actually going this route? Me personally, I think they're going this route because, it's a safer bet for them. If this thing does not do well and it fails, then Nintendo can mark it up as, oh no, this was just another device and we can go ahead and release a traditional console that a lot of people want, But because it's more of a handheld type device, they're pretty safe with the handhelds. And I think it would actually do extremely well. Now, would that possibly replace the console? Maybe. It's possible. I mean, take a look at the Game Boy. We haven't seen one of those for a while. And so the NX could technically take over the console and handheld. But we'll just have to wait and see. But anyways, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a big thumbs up. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And I'll talk to y'all on another one. Peace.